though the old masters did not use a fountain pen per se, this is of course a modern invention, we can still use these wonderful instruments today in the same spirit and pursuing the same things they did centuries ago. Today's video will be primarily about this wonderful TWSBI ECO Sky Blue. It's a limited edition and it was sent to me by TWSBI, and I'm delighted to announce that this is a collaboration with TWSBI, a brand that I love very much, and I've been using their pens for more than 5 years. I've been using them almost on a daily basis. I've been writing papers, essays, I've been reviewing technical papers. This one was a birthday present. I got this 3 years ago and I use it almost daily, and I can say that it practically wrote half of my dissertation. I use them for drawing, for drafting ideas. In my research, I work a lot with diagrams. I model complex systems, so it's very useful to have a pen. And they have become almost like an extension of my hand, and it's very natural for me to sit down, start work, and reach out for my fountain pen. But before I'm gonna present to you what this TWSBI can do, I would like to argue and present to you some of the reasons why I do recommend fountain pens. They're not obsolete. Using fountain pens is not like reviving this fossil for this romantic idea from the past or reliving the past. It's more about something that is very natural and is deeply connected to our inner structure as human beings. And I remember there was an interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson I've watched, and he's also very passionate about fountain pens, and he has quite a collection. And he was talking about fountain pens in analogy to horses, that we used horses in the past for transportation, for communication, for war, everything. And now, since we've advanced technologically as a society, they have become obsolete. But we still use them because of the pleasure of the act of riding or being driven in a horse carriage, and it's the same thing with fountain pens. However, I would argue against this because there's so much more to horses, but going back to fountain pens, it's the same thing. It's not about reviving the past or doing something, just obviously it's a very pleasurable act. I really enjoy using the fountain pens, and it makes my daily tasks so much more enjoyable and something to look forward to. But I think a big argument for it is, I would say, synesthesia and engaging your senses. And there's a very good reason why the greatest works of literature were in art, of course, because they were drawn by hand, but the greatest works of literature were written by hand. It's very difficult to find an equivalent of Dostoevsky or Tolstoy or Immanuel Kant in terms of the volumes of work he put down were handwritten. And as I said, this has to do with engaging our other senses. This is very natural. And you're probably familiar with, not necessarily the name, the peripatetic method, walking around while learning and making associations with the things you learn. You've probably been walking around in the park, listening to an audiobook, and you realize that you made associations between the things that you're learning or absorbing from the book and elements from the environment. When you read a physical book, it's more likely that you will remember what you're reading because you also remember where you was on the page. And this is very important when it comes to writing because this is an essential part of creativity. When you use a keyboard, I think you're introducing an unnecessary interface between the hand and the screen. And a fountain pen reduces that and the tactile feeling of the pen. So first of all, when you use a fountain pen, I think this is the most natural way of writing because it forces your hand to be elegant. You have to have a more elegant hand posture and overall posture. And this is how you hold a fountain pen, exactly like you hold a dip pen. And this is a position, a posture of the hand that has been tried and tested for millennia because we've been using dip pens for millennia. And this is the way you can sit down and write long writing sessions without feeling any hand fatigue. I wanted to make that note because I've seen people using fountain pens in so many different ways. I've never seen people writing like this before YouTube. And I don't want to criticize that, but it's not as efficient. It's not as efficient as holding the pen the correct way. It It creates a lot of tension and a lot of hand fatigue, and even your script becomes more elegant. So for instance, when I sit down and I want to write something on the computer, directly on the computer, when I start to write an essay or an article paper, I very often get a writer's block. But whenever I sit down with the pen in my hand, all I need to do is write the first word and everything else is simply flowing. And it's further proving my point that you need to engage your senses. And it's also far more enjoyable. It's such a pleasurable act of sitting down and writing. Yes, you might add 10% extra time, but I would argue that most of the times I would also add 50% increase in quality, and the flowing of the words, the phrasing is different. Everything is different when I start drafting an idea in a fountain pen. Before I show you the writing sample and the drawing sample, I just wanted to make a quick note on the engineering part of the TWSBIs, because this is something that I really appreciate. It really feels like the pens were made by engineers with this engineering mindset, which is so familiar to me because I know many engineers, my mom is one, and there's this sense and appreciation for the measure of things. And the fact that you can disassemble the pens and you can take all the components apart. You can take out the piston, you can take out the feed with a nib, the inner cap, which I did just the other day, was very easy using a pencil. I had to clean it. And when you buy a TWSBI ECO, it always comes with this toolkit. You get a wrench, looks really sweet. You can unscrew the piston, and you get some silicone grease to lubricate the piston when there's a need for it. However, I've been using this one for 3 years and I don't feel any fatigue in it, in the piston. Probably I will do it soon because it might be time, just for prevention. But that's one of the qualities of TWSBI, and I think the retail price is $31.99. And for a piston filling mechanism, this is incredible. I don't think they have any competitors in this price range, and especially not for what they offer in terms of ink capacity and a standardized quality of the nibs and general performance. I must admit, when I opened the package from TWSBI, I was really happy because the sky blue is one of my favorite colors. And even though I did not have an ink color to match the sky blue, I do have an ink to match the general theme, I assume. And that is Iris Nebula from Colorverse. It's an ink that I bought not long ago because I really love this shade of purple gray. This is a color that I've always loved. It looks a little bit like graphite on paper, but it's warmer. And it has this wonderful shimmer. Also, if you make the right associations that Colorverse is so good at, because most of their lines are about astrophysics, space exploration, you really enjoy this ink. So this is a TWSBI ECO limited edition in sky blue. The nib is so soft. It's a fine nib. Let me try some cursive. The ink is Iris Nebula from It is performing really, really well, despite the fact that this ink is not the most lubricating of inks. You will hear the expression of a wet or dry ink. Of course, it cannot be dry because it's a liquid, but what it means is that it's not very lubricating for the nib, and you can feel it when it touches the paper. It feels more scratchy, where it gives you more feedback. But it works really, really, really well.